You've had a long day. You settle into the couch, phone in hand, and almost immediately, as if they've been waiting for exactly this moment, your dog comes and sits beside you. Maybe they nudge your arm. Maybe they rest their chin on your knee, eyes tilted upward, patient and warm. You give them a quick pat without looking up, and your gaze returns to the screen. They try once more, a small press of their nose against your hand. You don't respond. And then, in that quiet way dogs do things, they simply get up. They walk to the other side of the room. They lie down, facing away from you. The moment passes. You scroll on. But here's the thing. That moment, it didn't pass for them the way it passed for you. Something happened in your dog in that space between the nudge and the retreat. Something that behavioral science has only recently begun to fully understand. And when you hear what it actually was, you will never look at that quiet walk across the room the same way again. Most dog owners carry a quiet assumption, never really examined, never really questioned. It goes something like this. Dogs don't understand what a screen is. They don't understand what it means when you choose it over them. So when your dog comes for attention and doesn't receive it, they simply get bored, wander off, and within minutes have forgotten the whole thing entirely. It feels harmless. It feels consequence-free. They're dogs, after all. Their emotional world resets quickly, like water returning to still after a stone passes through. This belief is genuinely comforting. It lets us swipe, scroll, and stream without the weight of guilt. And it sounds so reasonable that almost no one thinks to question it. That comfort, that easy reassurance, is exactly what makes what researchers have actually found so quietly unsettling. Because when behavioral scientists began tracking dogs specifically during owner distraction periods, moments of low responsiveness, screen-absorbed inattention, what they documented was not a dog peacefully disengaging. Dog stress indicators rose. Their attempts to solicit attention followed a clear, recognizable pattern, escalating in frequency and intensity before, eventually, collapsing into withdrawal. And that withdrawal, researchers were careful to note, didn't resemble relief. It didn't look like a dog who had simply lost interest. It looked far more like resignation, the behavioral signature of an animal that has stopped expecting a response. Your dog didn't walk away because they got bored. They walked away because they stopped believing an answer was coming. Those two things feel similar from the outside. From the inside of your dog's nervous system, they are entirely different experiences. What makes this particularly significant is something called the secure base effect, a concept that originated in human developmental psychology and was later confirmed, compellingly, in dogs. Research out of the University of Veterinary Medicine in Vienna demonstrated that dogs relate to their owners the way human infants relate to primary caregivers, as an emotional anchor, a reference point, a source of felt safety in an uncertain world. And just like infants studied under attachment frameworks, dogs become measurably more distressed not when their owner leaves, but when their owner is physically present, yet emotionally unavailable. Let that settle for a moment. Studies comparing owner-absent conditions to owner-present but distracted conditions have found that dogs are often more unsettled in the latter. Absence the dog's nervous system can process. There's a logic to it, you're gone. The world is simply different. But presence without connection? That creates something their emotional architecture has no clean category for. The anchor is there, but it isn't holding. What your dog is doing in those moments, the nudge, the chin on the knee, the quiet wait, isn't neediness. It isn't impatience. It is, in the most precise sense, a bid for relational confirmation. Every approach your dog makes is a small act of trust, a check-in, a question asked without words. Are we still connected? Is this bond still here? Am I still safe with you? When your eyes stay on the screen and the nudge goes unanswered, that question returns with no answer. And while a single unanswered check-in leaves no lasting mark, a pattern of them, a consistent environment where bids for connection dissolve into silence, quietly erodes your dog's sense of emotional security within the relationship. What looks from the outside like a dog being briefly ignored is, from the inside, a bond being tested in real time, and slowly, invisibly, recalibrated. This is an abstract, it's biochemical. Research measuring oxytocin levels in dogs during periods of engaged owner interaction versus non-responsive distraction has revealed a stark contrast. Positive, attentive interaction, eye contact, touch, responsiveness, triggers oxytocin release in dogs, the same neurochemical that drives bonding, trust, and felt safety in humans. But repeated, unanswered bids for connection show a corresponding blunting of this response over time. The dog's bonding chemistry dampens. Meanwhile, cortisol, the primary stress hormone, edges upward during prolonged non-responsiveness. A study published in Applied Animal Behavior Science, tracking physiological stress markers in dogs, found measurable hormonal shifts during even relatively brief periods of owner emotional unavailability. Your dog's body, in other words, is not indifferent to being overlooked. It registers the absence of connection as a low-grade biological stress, running quietly beneath the surface of what looks, from across the room, like a dog simply resting in the corner. To understand why dogs are wired this way, you have to go back, far back. Dogs didn't evolve alongside humans, incidentally. That coevolution was intimate, protracted, and deeply selective. Over thousands of years, the dogs who survived and thrived were the ones who could read human attention with precision, who could track gaze, interpret responsiveness, and understand what it meant when a human looked at them versus looked through them. In early human environments, a human who noticed you, engaged with you, acknowledged your presence, signaled safety, food, shelter, inclusion, protection. A human whose gaze slid past you, who was present but unreachable, was a different kind of signal entirely. It meant something was wrong. It meant the terms of the relationship may have shifted. Thousands of years of that selective pressure left dogs with nervous systems exquisitely calibrated to read human attention as deeply meaningful information. Your phone didn't confuse your dog. Their nervous system interpreted it the only way it knows how, as something that took you somewhere they cannot follow. And here's where it deepens. Because we're not talking about occasional moments, we're talking about patterns, and what those patterns do to a dog's behavior over time. Research into chronic low responsiveness environments has documented something researchers describe with careful, measured language, but which carries a quiet weight. Dogs who regularly experience unacknowledged bids for connection gradually reduce their solicitation attempts. Not because they need less connection, but because experience has taught them that seeking it yields nothing. This behavioral shift can look on the surface like independence, a calm dog, an easy dog, an unbothered dog. But what researchers have found beneath that calm is something closer to learned helplessness, a quiet adjustment of expectations downward to match a reality that has repeatedly failed to respond. The dog who has stopped trying to get your attention isn't content. They have simply stopped expecting that trying will work. There's one more layer, and this one is perhaps the most quietly disquieting. Studies tracking dog behavior after periods of owner distraction found that dogs don't simply reset to baseline the moment the phone goes down. There is a residual shift, reduced eye contact initiation, a slightly slower approach, a subtle hesitation before seeking proximity. Nothing dramatic, nothing you'd necessarily name or notice, but it's there, a behavioral echo that persists past the distracted episode itself. Your dog forgives quickly. That part of the common belief is true. But their nervous system keeps a quiet record. The reunion after the screen goes dark is not always precisely the same as it was before it came up. Something small but real has passed through the relationship, and your dog, without language, without the ability to tell you, has simply absorbed it and carried on. None of this is meant to make you feel like a failure. That's not what this is. What the research actually points to isn't a verdict on screen time. It's an insight about the nature of presence. Studies on dog well-being consistently find that the key variable in a dog's emotional security isn't the total hours of attention they receive. It's the quality and predictability of the connection within those hours. 10 minutes of genuine, fully present interaction, where you're actually there, eyes soft, hands responsive, attention unscattered, registers in your dog's nervous system as something fundamentally different from an hour of distracted proximity. You don't have to choose between your life and your dog. You simply have to understand that when you do turn toward them, the quality of that turning is something they feel completely and remember. So let's go back to that moment. Your dog on the other side of the room lying quietly facing away from you. They didn't make a sound. They didn't perform to stress or guilt you with a soulful stare. They simply moved with a kind of dignity that, now that you understand what it cost them, is almost hard to look at directly. They came to you with trust. A small, wordless request to be seen, to be confirmed, to be told, without words, that the bond between you was still warm and present and real. And when the screen held your eyes instead, something in them received that information and adjusted quietly around it. They went to the other side of the room. They waited, not because they had given up on you, but because even then they still believed you would eventually come back. That belief, steady, patient, quietly faithful, is perhaps the most extraordinary thing about them, and it deserves to be met. I want to ask you something, and I genuinely want to know. Think of a moment when you looked up from your screen and found your dog watching you from across the room, still, patient, just waiting. Drop that moment in the comments. Because here's what I want to explore next. If your dog carries the weight of your distraction, feels it in their body, registers it in their chemistry, then what happens on the other side? What does your dog actually experience in the moments when you are completely, fully, undividedly present with them? And does that presence, that quality of being truly seen, actually change who they are over time? That's the next one. And I think it might surprise you even more than this did.